What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 447. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Right.
I went from the most negative person in the world to a person that can tolerate people.
what development that is.
That's
That's growth.
That's growth. And I'm John.
Good to see you both. Back for a new episode this week. We're going to be talking about my pick for required viewing in a moment here, but then I think looking forward to the episode, we're going to do some just general what else have we watched. And then at the end of the episode, John went and saw Sinners. So I think we're going to go back and talk a little more Sinners to wrap up this episode. Anything else you guys want to mention at the top here? Any trailers, anything quick news, anything exciting before we go into the required viewing discussion?
This is related to me going to see Sinners, but I saw I guess I've seen people call it a teaser trailer, but I just thought it was a full-on trailer for him.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
I had not seen that before. It's rare to see a trailer like that on the big screen for the first time.
Right.
And I saw people talking about it like later that day, and I was wondering, did this just come out? And I actually did happen to catch a new trailer that's attached to a new movie, which was fun. But man, it looks really, just the imagery looked really powerful. You kind of had this, sometimes there's a quiet after a trailer that feels like people are like, what the hell is that? And other times there's a quiet, like people are like, damn. And I felt like this was a crowd that was, and it was a crowd. I'll say that as a teaser to my Sinners thoughts. It was a surprisingly large amount of people for a middle of the week matinee, which is what I was able to catch for Sinners. So,
Nice.
But yeah, him was a great. Have you guys both seen it?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
a big fan of Justin Tipping's first movie, Kicks.
Yeah.
I need to see it.
It's a
We
cool
talked
ass
about
movie.
that on the podcast, didn't we?
Years
long time ago.
Years ago. Yeah. I was a little upset because I think at first it was just kind of thrown around like it was going to be a Jordan Peele movie for a little bit.
Yeah. People are still calling it a new Jordan Peele movie.
Yeah,
People who know
yeah.
better are doing that.
Yeah, but this movie looks intense. It really is it's like a case study of how brutal sports can be and what they represent, and how they use people, and how people kind of live through their kids. Oh God, that man, it's crazy. And Marlon Wayans is doing a thing in this. Like, I love seeing him in serious stuff, man.
Well, he's good, and when he gets
really
a
good.
chance to be really funny, he's good, and when he gets a chance to be dramatic, he's good. So yeah, let's just. I mean, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying in general. I feel like people have this conversation where it's like, Marlon Wayans is actually pretty good, and it's like, no, yeah, he's actually been consistently good. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure there's been something he was in, but I don't think he was the problem with anything that he was in. It's interesting, like the Jordan Peele part of it. The kind of substance vibes you get from a trailer like that, where it seems like the horror is going to be a little bit of body horror mixed with these themes and these ideas. And I don't know, maybe sometimes it's fun to see something just hit something on the nose, like this whole idea of taking what athletes do to their bodies and what the machine that athletes are part of, how that chews people up and spits them out, and overlaying that with a horror thing. That just feels like, to me, that's just, I'm not even a sports guy, and that feels like a hand slipping into a glove in terms of like this. There's definitely enough material. There's something to get into here. You know what I mean? There's thoughts to have about the nature of the way people commit themselves to a sport and what that does to them. So I don't know. I'm prepared for it to be really interesting. And also, the Jordan Peele thing of it, like it promises that it's going to have this social consciousness to it, but it also, like his directorial movies, it's like, and he produced the Candyman, right? He was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he didn't direct it. So I'm saying, like, his movies always have that goal of like hitting on the genre side and also having something else that it's about. And this definitely looks like one of those. So.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited.
But people are just calling it the new Jordan Peele movie. I mean, it's
that's a great. I mean, that's not.
Right. It's probably smart.
That may be a hit on Justin or the other people involved with the movie, but I think that's probably an asset to them to like possibly launch them into the next stage of their career. Because Jordan, the work has been put in and earned, and I think that what they're doing with Monkey Paw, and it's kind of funny. I was going to say, I was reading an article this week mentioning him and talking about Sinners at the back end of this episode. I didn't know that there was I knew that there was a massive bidding war for Sinners when they took that out, early on, and Warner Brothers won out mainly because of what they offered in terms of that 25-year copyright fallback to Ryan. But apparently, I was reading that Jordan Peele with Monkey Paw and on behalf of Universal, which is his distribution arm for their production company, apparently like they almost got Sinners and they lost it.
Wow.
And because of that, Jordan Peele like fired their like long time management because of not getting that deal done. And it's like now seeing what Sinners is. Could you imagine that? Also with Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw on top of it.
Oh,
Like
he knew.
that's kind of crazy that almost happened.
I mean, could that not have like doubled the box office of this thing, just having
You're
his
right.
name on it, you know?
Right. I mean, you can't help but imagine. I mean, the movie
Not
itself,
that that's what we're talking about, necessarily just the money, but that is a big piece of
it's
this.
just this idea of like Coogler's in that conversation too, like these branding as directors, as creatives, as producers, like it follows certain films. And to even consider that they almost got that movie, I'm happy beyond with the movie that we got. But to think about just what it could have done to help the movie even more, it's kind of crazy. And hopefully it helps him a lot because him looks great. Trailer's great. I love Marlon Wayans. Like you said, he was great in Air. Like he's always been very funny to me. And to see him in, some dramatic roles where I'm sure there's still going to be humor, just like there is in everything he does.
I'm going to mention a sleeper role of his that people it's not a well-regarded movie, but I think he's great in The Lady Killers.
Oh, he's great. 100%.
He's so funny.
Oh, he's great. But yeah, I don't know. The trailer, there's a lot going on in that trailer, but I love the possibility of like just exploring like some sort of parasitic relationship between the two of them, like going two ways. And because there's definitely things in that trailer that make it look like, he's like this aging quarterback that is, shepherding this like new franchise kid, but something's afoot. It's like there's something happening to him clearly in the clips you see. I just can't wait to see what this movie's really about. It just looks really good, man.
Well, what I heard when you said the thing about Sinners almost being bought by or distributed or whatever by Jordan Peele is not so much like the alternate version of the movie that might have existed, but just how much it makes sense to me that Jordan Peele would be like, that's the one that got away. That's worth firing my advisors over or whatever. Is to be like, we should have had that. That was not
100%.
That wasn't supposed to not be ours. But at the same time, it's a testament to Ryan Coogler's clout as well, that he's able to go and set up his own shingle for himself. And what was interesting to me is just making me think about those names that they would put on movies to make you go see them. Like when I was growing up, it was Steven Spielberg Presents or produced by Steven Spielberg, and now it's Jordan Peele. It changes over time, but that's not something that just comes out of thin air when someone's name on that side of the equation becomes the marketable thing. We are in a little bit more of a director conscious era than the one we grew up in. But Ryan Coogler's name now has that sort of weight attached to it, like Jordan Peele. And when you look at what Ryan Coogler has done, it's amazing. I guess this is a preview of my Sinners thoughts again. It's like he's worked in not just genre, but in IP. Like so much of his stuff has been pre-existing IP. And yet he's done something really original with it. And then here's something, Sinners becomes something that's like his most original thing since Fruitvale Station. And then the next thing he's got queued up is X-Files, right? I mean, come on. Like, I love when guys stay in genre or I love when people get the clout and then they do genre. But like his movies have genre with weight. So I don't know. That's
100%.
just a cool wave of, there've always been genre movies that try to tackle these themes. And if right now that's kind of the trend that's going to get some money poured into it, then I'm happy to see studios I'm happy to see them try to learn all the wrong lessons and copy these movies and maybe give more directors money to make, movies with themes.
Yeah. Do yourselves a favor. Proximity Media, Ryan Coogler's company. He has a podcast on there. Ryan Coogler has a podcast. 6 months ago, there's a conversation with Jordan Peele. It makes so much more sense now that you said that.
Yes. We talked about that episode on this podcast.
He was acting really like, you're amazing.
Uh-oh.
Got so excited.
Yeah, I got so excited that I froze. What the hell, man? That computer's fine.
Yeah, you're delayed. You're falling behind.
I know everything was fine, and then it was like acting weird. I don't
Okay,
know.
but I think this time Steve and I learned the lesson of last time is we didn't talk over
Yeah,
Ronald being
yeah.
frozen. So we'll just be quiet next
Yeah.
time. If you notice us seeming like we're frozen,
Yeah.
it's probably because we're waiting for you to unfreeze. But
Right,
I don't
right.
want that. Yeah, it'll hopefully help with the edit if we
Yeah.
don't talk over you not realizing you're frozen yet. You know,
It should be
That's what I
fun.
did.
Yeah. So I was just saying that.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. There were specific things that he was saying that I distinctly remember, and I was wondering why. And I was like, oh, okay, he must have seen a cut of that movie. He must have fucking wanted that movie.
Yeah, man. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a factor.
Yeah. Wow. What if Monkey Paw produces X-Files?
That seems like that seems like their thing. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would fit
Yeah.
with because like the IP, like Candyman, that's another.
Yeah.
And Ryan Coogler has said he intends to make his X-Files really scary, and that was just something that I was like, oh, good, that's such
Let's
a good
go.
goal.
Yeah.
And also,
Do
what a refreshable concept too. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can throw back to and connect to, and legacy
Oh, yeah.
sequel out the ass. But you also can come up with new characters and new situations, and like save that David Duchovny cameo or whatever you've got, like whatever connection to the old. If he's going to do that, just figure out how to utilize it. But the X-Files itself is something that could easily have new life breathed into it.
Hunt's very exciting to me. I've heard him talk about the X-Files a number of times, so it's cool to, that's something in his sights to have a hand in.
Well, don't you think it helps that the X-Files has been brought back a couple times, and they had
Yeah.
those movies that diminishing returns. It's like people still respect it, but it's not like so perfect that it seems like Ryan Coogler. It's a little bit like Rocky. It's a little bit like
Yeah.
whatever, like coming into a franchise that people still respect, but it's kind of been kicked around. So it's fine and awesome for like a guy who. I mean, we can start using words like visionary or whatever about these guys eventually, but
Yeah.
you can definitely say that he's got a couple of movies you could call masterpieces already that he's made. So
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, let's jump into the required viewing pick. This is my pick this week. I chose a film that came out last year on Netflix. It's a documentary called The Remarkable who passed away due to a degenerative muscular disorder. But basically, kind of the story's telling his life and his relationships with the people, gamers that he found through the World of Warcraft game community, and like kind of how his family comes to learn of that and their participation, and kind of filling in or connecting some dots of his life where they thought was a little more, I guess, a life of isolation, where he really did find an outlet and formed a community and relationships through a game. Had you guys ever heard about this? I can't remember if I asked you this last episode or not. Was this on either of your radars last year?
I believe I heard something or read a festival review or something. This movie was on my radar, not so much on my radar, but like when I started reading into it before, watching it, when you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, this one, because I do remember when people were talking about what an unusual and emotionally affecting movie it was. And I also remember just thinking something about that concept. Like I know that it was that somehow I had heard the concept of like taking the person's online life and sort of using it as the basis of a story structure, kind of for something that lasts after they're gone. I didn't know any of the particulars of it. But no, it was, I call this movie The Remarkable Why the Fuck Did Steve Want Me to Cry?
I know, right? I know. That was a mess, man.
I mean, I honestly was about to text, why did you do this, Steve?
Yeah, I watched it at work.
Like the first 15 minutes too. It's almost like the movie does that. It's almost like they do that on purpose, I think. Like they hit you so hard with that stuff up front. You're seeing the little boy, the toddler, and the footage, and he's so sweet and he's so cute. And then you see the manifestations of his physical condition and how like that starts to affect his life. and you hear so you see where it's going, but I still went through so much emotionally just in that opening chunk, even though I knew we had to get there to get to the concept of like reassessing this person through their online existence, you know? But I don't know. I found there were so many weird moments in this movie that were relatable. So, if anyone's hearing this and thinking, oh, that sounds too depressing, or that sounds, I don't know what that is. I think that in the end, it's very life affirming, or it makes you think about the connections you have with people. And I mean, I've already given a lot of thought. I have a lot of online relationships that are very rich, and that, when everyone flees one platform or another because it's been taken over by some neo-fascists or whatever, like there's always this thought of like, how do we rebuild this community somewhere else, and you get people's phone numbers and you email people and stuff like that. So I do think there's something, anyone probably can find some idea of an online group that you're connected to, that if you'd never talk to those people again, your life would be poorer for it. And to say those aren't real relationships because those are only online friendships just seems blatantly incorrect. And this movie really lays out the many ways in which that is not true. But also, I think, and I'll just throw to Ronald, I guess, I also think it's interesting how the movie does not shy away from the negative, toxic, alienating, whatever you want to call it, aspects of online relationships. And the sad fact is that Matt's the kid at the center of this story. He's trying to hide his physical existence from people because the game is a place where he feels free of all that.
Right.
And that causes problems for him with the what could be the rich real life social manifestation of this stuff. So I think it was cool that the movie didn't like make it sound like all this online stuff is just great. It definitely showed how there's an underbelly to it. Ronald, what did you make of this movie? And how did it make you? You said you were at work.
I was at
people
work.
Asking what's wrong with Ronald.
So here's the good part. I come in a couple hours before everybody else does. So I started it. I get to work like 6:30. People normally come in around like 7:38. So I had some time to like watch at least the first hour of it or so, and I was crying. I was like, and the thing is, like, one thing people don't talk about, and this was a little more honest about, is when people aren't in ideal health, they can be really angry. I think that people want you to be very like okay with it. One thing I distinctly remember about a friend of a friend that was very sick is just how angry they were. They were fucking pissed. They was just like, why the fuck is this happening to me? And I think that people want you to show this humility that doesn't exist. It's
or they want you to be inspirational.
Yeah. But it's like they honestly want you to be okay, and sometimes you aren't.
Right.
And and I've just had little bouts with sickness, and I feel like that. I can't imagine having essentially, unfortunately, a death sentence in a way.
Yeah.
And a definitive end date, and not feeling quite as compelled to be happy about it as people want you to be. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting seeing kind of the ebbs and flows of how he was and how inspirational he was, just taking out the time to say those really nice things, especially the son and mom, like just taking a chance to be like, figure out a language that your kid understands. It's really cool.
Yeah, he unites a friend. He makes a friend through World of Warcraft who's going onto the game maybe to understand her son.
Yeah.
Who is kind of withdrawn, and meets him, or his fictional avatar, or his real self, or whatever we want to call that, and then he says, maybe relate to your son through the game, and then the way it's visualized, it implies that they sort of then would congregate, the three of them, but definitely at least the son and the mom then have these chats through the game. Yep. And the movie paints it as they're sitting on opposite sides of the room playing the game and communicating, and it's like, I don't know how much that's actually what's happening, but the idea of that is it makes me wonder, was that something that Matt's kind of wished for with his mom, or maybe one of his parents, like for him to immediately come to that, maybe you should try to relate to him through the game. Maybe he didn't know how to express, or didn't think to express to his own mom.
Yeah.
You could know this other side of me if you just would just would do this thing with me and not. And I felt kind of guilty. I'll tell you guys, this is something that's going to sound a little weird maybe. I felt guilty watching this movie on a much better screen than Matt's got to be in his, like, I had so much more of an immersive experience with the visualization of his fictional world
the game,
than he got to have. He had such a small screen, and I think it's because his parents didn't understand how much it was part of
100%
something for him, and they weren't mean about it. They were just a little dismissive because to them it seemed like a sad thing that, like, what it is. One of them said a limited life, because of this.
His dad,
and I don't think he meant it in a bad way. He meant it as like, I felt bad. He was saying, I thought this, and now I know this isn't true. But no, you felt for the parents in that first part, just what they were trying to figure out. But you can almost see that he really wasn't being understood by the people that were in the room with him. But he was finding that online.
Yeah, I love this idea. Like, I mean, I was really moved by this documentary. I mean, and really kind of attached to it pretty early in the film. But like, just challenging the idea of even what a fulfilling life looks like, that notion in today's world, with however you might find that fulfillment, whether it's because of, a disability or a challenge or a lack of access, whatever it might be, the idea of measuring it against like what your preconceived notion is or what you deem to be fulfilling or that, I don't want to say that judgment, but the kind of jumped to compare, is really challenging. And I think that this movie really kind of, especially in a familial setting from parents to child, and even, us watching this, it's a really good framing of this idea of like, he still found a way to have a connection, and it was through a means that like, identified with him and that he had access to, and that he found warmth in. And, even though there was a bit of a spectrum of emotions that he experienced in these relationships that he couldn't really experience in real life, he still was able to experience it. And I think that's just like a really, really great idea to like be reminded of, is that, the judgment, the comparisons, it's like, it's all a matter of perspective. And, I just love the idea of being able to watch this and, and the recreations of the game and things like that, to explain this story is even just an even more immersive experience as really not much of a gamer, to really kind of challenge some of my preconceived notions of online gaming or gaming in general, or even just online relationships, period. Not that I have a real feeling about it in any negative way, but it's like, sometimes it's just a safe space for people that don't feel safe in the world. And that's a good reminder. And I don't know, I thought it was really great. I kind of want to watch it again. Like I want to told my mom to check it out. Feel like she would love this, but it was just really good. I mean,
as a person who's been online gaming for over 20 years, and I have a friend group that literally will not talk to me on the phone, will only talk to me online. Right. It's just a regular part of life, and has
right. That's it right there. It's regular. It's very regular. Common. It's very normal.
It's so common.
And it's almost like the expectation. That's like the rule, not the exception.
Yeah, man.
And like that perspective is lost on someone who isn't participating in that. That just feels really normal to someone that experiences like you do and like he did. It's just a really good reminder of like, I have no insight into it, but to have that insight through a doc like this and the understanding of like this one specific person's life and how that community, affected it. And now those around him, it's really good, man. It was just really, really kind of a good heartwarming kind of, even though emotional, it's just a reminder of like how life can still be really good, man, for people that have a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like
sure.
that. It's like that whole human spirit thing of like,
Totally.
And it's like, which again, not in the corny sense, but with all the baggage and all the ugliness that comes along with it. Because like I said, this movie doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah.
The loneliness that this guy felt, the way they visualized that first time his friend drops out because her parents make her take away her computer. That whole stretch just broke my heart because I mean, that whole thing that happens in the real world. Like, people you just have access to, and then suddenly you don't, and then you suddenly realize like, oh, I don't have any claim to this person. I'm not part of their life. I knew him in this fleeting way, and now I miss him. But in the context, it was really meaningful. And I also thought that like that was a sad little, the way that went was sad. But I thought that whole stretch where they're wanting him to come to the gathering, and they just don't know. Like, they don't know that they're making it harder for him in a way by asking him and by posting the pictures and stuff. But there's also something that them getting together and having those feelings is just proof to him of how real these friendships are. So it's, I don't know. It's like, I thought it was also really cool that they had the blog, like that he had written some lengthy piece about his own life that they could use as narration. That helps. This is one of those stuff. And also a shocking amount of footage. I was watching it going, oh yeah, they're just getting, I guess it makes sense that you would be filming your life. But it was interesting how much footage they had. I don't know when they started knowing they were shooting a documentary about this person. Right. And the other thing I would just say is, Ronald, you kind of touched on this. As like a person who plays games, I've played approximately one campaign in Dungeons and Dragons with some friends in recent years. I'd never played it before, and suddenly I did. And when you think I'm going to zig, I zag. And by zag, I mean I invent a half-elf assassin. But I became so attached to this guy and like his fictional existence and his backstory that I had in mind for him, and the way that my friends and I related in the game is different than the way you're talking and you're saying, let's play. And then there's a moment or two where you have to relate as your characters and you're sort of being the same, but you're also, there's a, you go away from it and you kind of miss that character. And it's like, there was a moment where it really seemed like my character was about to die, and I was fucked up over, like I was sitting there going like, no, he's got like revenge that he's got to get, and he's got all these things, you know. It's like, so I'm just saying, you don't even have to need it as a lifeline to become attached to the sort of, let's play pretend and let's put ourselves in this other world, and maybe you're not even trying to comment on yourself, but you probably are anyway with whatever character you create, you know. So yeah, it was very easy for me to connect to various things that are very very real to me, even though this person's experience couldn't be different enough, couldn't be more different than mine. And something about the youth of the guy too. I mean, I don't know. There's so much, you want to have so much hope. And like you said, Ronald, it's pretty obvious that this condition just is worsening over time to the point where he eventually will not be able to function. And he even says like there's certain game commands, like when he couldn't play the game as well anymore and he couldn't tell people, and like they're busting on him in the game and stuff, that was crazy. That was
not knowing that he's, oh god, it's
like, you're useless and what's wrong with you and all that shit, and they don't know that he just can't hit those buttons together, or he can't reach that button anymore. And again, his not wanting, I totally understand why he didn't want to share that, but it also, it's like, it hurts because you realize they would have accepted him, you know. At least I think most of those people would have accepted him. But yeah, Steve, Jesus,
sorry guys, I
was mad at first because I was like, I can't do this. I was like,
oh god.
But like, if Ronald, if you said required viewing this week is my eye surgery, I have a video of it I'm going to make you watch. But I'm glad I watched it because it did end up being more hopeful, and I ended up feeling more. Sure. I ended up feeling glad I watched it.
Good.
But also, screw you, guy.
Do what I do.
Super, super sad, but also, like you said, man, I was happy. It was weird. I was like really happy at the end, but also like, man,
So what's next, John? You're next, right?
Yes. We have so many options before us because recently there have been so many movies that people have said, oh, I can't believe you haven't seen that. Or movies that are being referred to by other things I'm watching that I feel like are part of the conversation. And I was just like, I gotta watch so many of these movies. And I was going to give you guys a choice. I was going to say, like, pick a number and I'll draw something, because I really couldn't decide. But I finally decided today's the day, because it's good to do like a classic film that you haven't seen, or a movie that's regarded as a classic that you haven't seen. And I have not seen a certain movie that I think might help us understand our current situation in a way, because I just think we're just going to have to get used to Russian involvement in American life. We're just going to have to get used to it. And so in order to understand this relationship, the relationship between the United States and Russia, I think I want to go back to 1990 and see a little movie I never watched called The Hunt for Red October.
Oh. Wow.
What confirmed my thoughts about this movie was when I looked at, you go online and you see the cast and then you hit the see more. When I saw who all is in this fucking thing, I knew who the main players were. I didn't realize who all is in this thing. This has got so many good that guys and character actors. So I think it'll be a good 1990 time capsule, as well as like I said, just a movie that seems to be extremely highly regarded all around. And I just have never watched it. So
that's great. I can't wait to rewatch this. This is, I can't believe you've never seen that. I'll just echo that. There you go. It just validates that feeling. That's kind of crazy.
I don't know if I haven't seen it in a really long time. I remember watching it with my dad, but no,
it's a dad movie. This is
this is a dad movie
for
I've
sure.
watched this with my dad multiple times for sure.
Okay, cool.
This is a good old Jack Ryan movie.
Yep. And this is like the Alec Baldwin movie.
That's
too,
right.
In a lot of ways, it kind of established him.
That one is on, just for those following at home, it's on Canopy, which we promoted many times on this show. You can get free through your local library service. It's free on there in HD.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Free
I was
streaming.
Say, this seems like one that would exist in a format, Ronald, somewhere that you would want to play, that would shake your walls or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many Ks? Is this out there in 4K?
It is.
It is.
It is. Thank you so much for asking, because I just looked it up, because I remember someone talking about it being an exceptional transfer, and I will be watching it in 4K.
You can buy it in 4K on Apple for $14.99.
I think I actually have a digital copy in 4K as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's streaming also on Hoopla and Pluto TV if you have either of those platforms. So those are free with, I think Pluto is with ads, but Hoopla is free as well. Cool. I'm excited for that. Let's jump into the what else have you seen before we get to the Sinners talk again here. Ronald, you went and saw a movie you wanted to talk about.
Yes, The Legend of Ochi, Isaiah Saxon movie. He did The Tale of Hillbilly, which I've never seen. But this is a interesting. I think they use some animatronics for these Ochi characters and some people in suits for some. But this is a story about an island that looks like it's in Europe somewhere. They don't really say where it is exactly, where these Ochis live in this mountain. They're like almost like Yetis that make this very distinct noise. It's almost like a musical sort of cry out where they communicate with each other.
Okay.
And there's a culture on this island where they're murdered. They try to catch as many as possible and murder them. Finn Wolfhard's in it. Emily Watson's in it. Willem Dafoe. Helena Zengel, which you may recognize her from the controversial short that long hair had. What's her name? She didn't show her identity for a really long time. She wrote for yeah. You remember that movie, the short where she had autism?
Oh yes.
People went kind of crazy for that because it was like controversial. They're like, hey, they should have casted
someone else, right.
that actually had autism. But she was incredible in that, and I think that she was definitely cast for this movie because of there's shades of that in this movie. But she sees an Ochi, befriends it, and realizes that she can communicate directly with them. And there's kind of a history of that unravels with Willem Dafoe and a character that doesn't exist yet until later in the movie. But it's a cool movie, man. It's seeing this Ochi. I don't know how they did it. It looks like animatronics.
I think part of them were. I remember I watched
Yeah.
a
Oh man,
behind the scenes thing.
it looks so practical. Like it feels like ET, but it doesn't feel like ET. You know what it feels like? It feels like ET if ET were to be like more mobile. Like if he could walk around more and went on like a physical adventure, like, but it feels distinctly 80s. Like this movie does not feel like it came out in 2025. Although the visuals look very new, this feels very much like an 82 movie, like an 82, 83 movie.
Yeah, I can't
And
wait to watch this now.
it has some
Yeah,
charm to
I know.
it. Like
You've really sold it to me.
yeah,
Like I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I was like, "This looks really good." And
yeah,
then you describing it even more in that line,
yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, this sounds like it's perfect."
It's quirky like it's quirky.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's quirky like Sunday morning. It's quirky like Sunday morning. But it's very quirky. But it's really quirky, man. Willem Dafoe is doing this weird accent. And he's talking to kids any kind of way, which is also very funny. But yeah, the Ochis are like you want one. If the Ochis feel like Baby Yoda, like I know that there's like a thing about these two sort of thing. Like if the Ochi came out before Baby Yoda, this would have been the thing. Like it would have been a. But
Cool. That's
yeah,
in theaters, right?
it's in theaters. It comes out this Friday. So I think it's like soft opening Wednesday. You know, I saw it early, but it's they're marketing. They're
That
marketing
gang
this gang gang. Oh man, I definitely saw this through gang gang. I like
Gang
the fact,
gang, represent it.
yeah,
There it is.
yeah. A24,
Every
the
dude,
A24.
you got to watch this behind the scenes thing. I'll send it to you. This
Okay.
in terms of like how they move the Ochis around on the set. Like there's puppetry at play. Like
Okay.
guys in like green screen suits and like
Oh,
they have
awesome.
like these like it looks so fucking cool.
When you see him actually move, it's very clear that they like
Yes.
moved every limb. Like there's like a part where he's climbing up a mountain and you can see his
it looks
little
cool.
hands moving. It's like and his face is reacting to like the like having to pull himself up. So it's like
Yeah.
it's like the details are insane. And
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I kind of fell in love with
I'm
it.
excited to see this, man. I
Yeah,
can't
no.
wait. This looks
Yeah.
fun.
I was interested before, but I didn't know as much as you just told me.
Yeah.
And now I'm even more interested. you know?
Yeah.
I was the only person in the theater. Like it was
So
like
you're seeing I can see it at home in a couple weeks. Sadly.
probably.
Sadly.
But shout out to A24 Gang Gang.
Gang gang.
Yeah, opening weekend ticket. I definitely
They need to sponsor this podcast.
Oh,
what
man.
It's, what it's coming into here.
I
Gang
shot
gang.
them an email, man. Gang Gang. Please let us be a part of the gang. We will wear A24 hats. We will don the hats. We will talk about them as soon as
so
the movies
fun.
come out.
So fun.
Join Gang Gang, the AAA24 club. I love it.
Good deal.
And we're not sponsored by them, but you would think
Yeah,
that we were.
you would.
I mean, we're just kind of putting feelers out there. Is I think what we're doing
Yeah.
right now. What else? I was going to mention I watched the first couple episodes of the new John Hamm series, the Your Friends and Neighbors, which I think it's an Apple Plus series, right?
It
yeah,
is.
Apple
Okay.
Plus. Which I'm really into it. John Hamm,
Is he hamming it up in there?
Amanda Peet, Olivia Munn. I mean, he's kind of like, he's John Hamm. Like, I guess maybe that's a yes to your question.
Yeah.
Like, it's not too much John Hamm. It's
Gotcha.
just the down the middle John Hamm. Basically, this super successful financial planner, stockbroker who makes a bad decision and gets let go from his job, and basically this rich life that he lives. He's got to figure out a way to get money, and he basically starts stealing from his circle of friends and their abundance of wealth that they would not even notice as missing.
Oh,
But yeah, I've watched a couple episodes that have come out so far. It definitely, if you like John Hamm, there's a lot to enjoy. But yeah, the wealthy and the life that they lead, and it's kind of like ridiculous, that a plot could be like, what could he steal without them noticing,
Mm-hmm.
like when you have that amount of wealth that, something that could make one person's entire life, you would never even notice it's gone from yours.
Mm.
It's kind of, some of that perspective that he talks about is and he's kind of in this crisis himself about what he is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I dug it. It's I think only 2 episodes are out so far at the time that we're recording this, but I had been wanting to check it out and heard good things about it. Yeah, but that's on Apple TV, Your Friends and Neighbors, John Hamm.
Interesting career, right? Because like Don Draper was so iconic and so settled us into this idea of him, and there hasn't been. I mean, it's like he's been good, and it's like the more willing he is to just show up and do whatever the role is, like the more you enjoy seeing John Hamm when he's he's there to be funny, or he's there to be the villain, or he's there to be whatever. But it's interesting that he hasn't had that like post Mad Men career that like. He seemed like he might have been like a bankable name for a while, and it just doesn't seem like that connected at all. It makes me realize how niche those prestige television hits can be as far as like how many people are actually watching.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Or at least over, it's like maybe a lot of people watch Mad Men, but it's over time and it's a rolling scale or whatever. I don't know. It's always been interesting to me that John Hamm I've enjoyed seeing him in a lot of things. And I think he's a really likable guy. And he seems to have such a great sense of humor about himself. It's just interesting that he doesn't seem to have that, whatever that central role is outside of Don Draper that would make you go, oh yeah, and he's got that. Yeah,
it's true. It's a good point. Yeah, I mean that's a great place to be, that you have that iconic role.
Right. It's one of those good problems. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have. But yeah, I mean, I think he's found a lot of not like blockbuster star kind of making success, especially theatrically. But I mean, he's definitely had some great roles in some good, very good, if not great movies. But yeah, a lot of success on TV, both in comedy and drama. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's kind of all over the place in terms of what he pops up in. But I just like him, seeing him in anything really. And because you never know, like that little side of humor that he always has and he's always game for. It kind of pops up in little places in most of the stuff that he's in. Mm-hmm. So that's always like a nice little release from some of the more dramatic stuff or serious stuff that he's been in. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm thinking about like stuff he's played in, like what The Town, Baby Driver, mm-hmm. Top Gun Maverick. Like he's been in some pretty great movies,
right? But you don't think of him as like John Hamm. Right. Well, I mean, I think even something that seemed like it was set up to be a really good vehicle for him, the Fletch for him.
Oh, he's
Fletch,
great in it.
Really great, and really brings that charm and a different side of it, and that really felt like, oh, maybe this role is going to be the one or a one for him, and that just didn't connect with people. But that, I mean, it's like I feel like in a different world there would be 2 or 3 Fletch movies starring him at this point.
I wish, man. That was I love that one.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I've watched the first 3 episodes of Andor, which is on Disney Plus. They're trying a very unusual and maybe not that great a release strategy for this season of Andor, which is it's 12 episodes, and whereas the series of Andor was meant to cover the 5 years leading up to Rogue One, to find out what set Cassian Andor up to be in the role that he was in Rogue One. The first season of Andor took place over 1 year, and then Tony Gilroy said, fuck this, we're not doing 4 more seasons of this show. Also, I think the idea that Diego Luna would be basically spending 8 years playing this character and trying to look like he did 12 years before, they were just like, no, we're not doing this. So they compressed the remaining 4 seasons or 4 years of Andor's life into this one season. So every 3 episodes is going to be a block, and then it's going to jump a year, and then it's a block, and then it jumps a year. So we're getting like the year 4 before the Rogue One incident, and then we're getting year 3, and then we're getting year 2, and then we're getting year 1, leading up to that way that we know the character.
Got it.
So this batch of episodes that just came out is set basically 4 years before the original Star Wars, more or less. Okay. And I mean, it's terrific. If you liked the first season of Andor, and if you remember how good the dialogue was and how good the acting was, it's all there. Tony Gilroy writes. I mean, I love Lawrence Kasdan, and what he's written for Star Wars is probably my favorite Star Wars stuff, but Tony Gilroy is right up there. It's a different take on it, but it's like this idea that you can write good dialogue for these movies. You know, it doesn't have to be corny, or it doesn't have to be just full of exposition. There's like really, really clever exchanges and a lot of conversations about how things really work, like in government and politics and stuff. So it's just, I mean, I was blown away by that aspect of the first season, and the second season seems to hold on to that. And really, like the first sequence you get, there's this great conversation between Andor and a fellow sort of spy, another person who's helping him on a mission against the Empire. And it's just this fantastic, I mean, it's like, it's a great scene, and it's like good dialogue, well shot, well acted. It's got a little spice of humor to it. Instantly you realize, yes, this is some of the best, this tone, the Tony Gilroy tone is some of the best Star Wars that we've gotten. And we've got, 12 more episodes of it. But the idea that you're putting out 3 episodes a week, it's a lot to take in a way, to watch 3 in a row. But it kind of felt like a little movie. Like when it was over, it's over 2 hours, but it felt like a long movie. And everybody who you want to see, everyone's back. You got Stellan Skarsgård, you got Diego Luna, of course. You
nice.
got so yeah, I mean, I just think it's incredibly well done, and like got so much, it's adding so much richness to Star Wars in a way that very few of I would say just in the history of Star Wars, very few of the projects that have been created are as rich as this. So I'm so glad it's back, and I'm a little annoyed it's going to be over in 3 weeks rather than 11 weeks, but another part of me is glad to get that larger dose, where an episode ends and you kind of want to see where it goes.
So they're releasing 3 every week?
Every week is 3 episodes.
Wow.
It's like they're trying to burn it off, is what it feels like.
That's weird.
But I will say this, watch the show, you will see one of the most expensive looking things
I've read
seen.
It's insane.
So it's like, I love that it exists. I'm surprised they're burning it off in this way. Maybe once you're on a subscriber model like that, it doesn't matter once it's all. I don't understand the economics of it. But it definitely does not feel like they are holding back in any way on this. Wow. It's almost like they know they've got something special and they put a lot into it. But I still wonder, like, how is, like, it doesn't point to the future of Star Wars, because we know this story ends, this character ends, and Tony Gilroy has basically said, I'm leaving. And he also has said very funny things. I don't know if you've tracked him in interviews, but he said things like, I've put more thought into this shit than anyone ever has. I love that. But it's true. He has made it, like, all these Star Wars shows. And I thought Skeleton Crew was great. But I think that's one of the other top ones. I mean, honestly, this is not like a long list of Star Wars things that have been absolutely great to me. And when you see something like Andor, you realize how good it could be, because it is like, oh yeah, this is good television. It's not just good for this brand or good for this Disney Plus experiment or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's actually good. And you can feel that everybody sort of knows it, and there's a lot of swagger, it's still subtle, it's still good, but there's a lot of swagger coming into this season.
Oh heck yeah, yeah, no, that's a lot of positivity and confidence.
So
nice, man. Yeah, I can't wait to watch these. Especially, I didn't realize they were all coming out inside of a month. It's wild.
Wow. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, so that's something from each of us. John, you wanted to talk about Sinners a little bit now that you were able to catch it?
Yes, I guess I'll share my non-spoiler thoughts, and then we'll just leave a nice point for people to hop off if they haven't seen the movie. But if you have seen the movie and you want to hear us dig into some of the themes and stuff, which I can imagine some people might, then stick around. But yeah, first off, I'll just say, I mentioned already my screening was, like, I looked at a few screenings over a couple of days, and there were a lot of, like, last-minute choices where you think, oh, I've got time before that screening, and it was like 7, 8, 9 p.m. screenings that were close to sold out.
Wow.
So I finally found one that I could go see, and I mean, yeah, I guess I'll just jump on and say, yes, this is a great movie. Ryan Coogler's a transformational talent, probably. I don't know. Like, again, I think you need to see a little bit more from somebody before you start talking about what they've changed. But as far as someone who can just make a movie and make it sing, I think that Ryan Coogler is that guy. And I also think this movie, and this is not a backhanded compliment, but it's not a perfect movie. It's a little messy, but that's what's great about it. It does so many things. It's like, it does deliver on the vampire thing. It does deliver on the sort of historical. I mean, there's a portion of me that went about halfway in. I was like, oh yeah, there's vampires coming. I'd almost forgotten that it was going to turn into a horror movie because I was so compelled by the story of the brothers and what they were doing. And there's just them setting up this night, that they, like, you could see it being an interesting drama anyway. But like the fact that like a movie like this doesn't have to have all the rough edges sanded off because it's got so many things it's trying to do. And I love seeing the ambition and the bravado of a movie like this, that he's trying things that other directors might not try, and other directors, like a story that people might not find these layers in. And then the other thing I would say is just Michael B. Jordan is the kind of charismatic actor that it takes you a minute to buy him as almost anything. Do you know at all what I mean? Like, you watch Michael B. Jordan, he's so handsome and so likable, and it's like it takes you a minute before you're like, nobody's that nobody's that like handsome and self-possessed or whatever. But then he warms you up, and within a few minutes you can tell the differences between the brothers, and really great performance. And what you pointed out, Steve, about that first shot we see of them, Smoke and Stack, like it's the typical thing you do when it's twins, and like they've got to hand something to each other, or the camera's got to spin around them, or one has got to help the other one up, and like you're waiting for that moment where they do it, and it's just he rolls the cigarette and then hands it over to him, which is noteworthy because later we see that repeated in a way, or that idea repeated. But just it was so effortless, and I was watching for it, and I was like, oh yeah, that was like really subtle. It reminded me of the way they did it with Ewan McGregor on Fargo. Yeah. When they did do one of those shots, they just did like you normally would storyboard and say, oh, we're going to cut to a 2-shot of them talking, and they would just cut to that shot. But it's not like they didn't like overdo the showiness of it. But there were some moments in this movie where I was like, how did they pull this off? And which version of Michael B. Jordan was really in the room with the other people? Because anyone who's in a scene, when it's a crowd scene and those two brothers are around, never once did you guys think about the effects once? I didn't think about them once.
Not at all.
I mean, there were other moments where you might have seen some of the edges of like what might be considered an effect, but none of it was in that naturalistic stuff. It was shot, lit, whatever, so well for that aspect. And that's like a thing that can be really corny, and they really sidestepped that, the idea that like this is like two slightly different versions of the same guy. No, I just thought that was, I mean, we've been talking a lot about Ryan Coogler, but Michael B. Jordan is like, he's just kind of amazing in this. And it makes me think about like how he makes so many, like people talk about how Killmonger is this really compelling villain and you almost side with him. And it's because of that just raw charisma that he can bring, and like total confidence that like he brings to a role. It feels like what he's trying to do with his acting really goes hand in hand with the way Ryan Coogler approaches his filmmaking. And I think the fact that they obviously have this collaboration, I love to see it. I love like, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. I love that kind of thing when somebody has a relationship with between an actor and a director, where it's like you can tell they're cooking things up. I don't know. I guess it's also stacked with other performances. Delroy Lindo is fantastic in this. He's hilarious, and the way he leverages everything and think about Delroy Lindo from other movies. I've never seen him play a character this sloppy and funny, but like just about every time they cut to him, he's got this great moment. A couple of times his lines were like the whole thing about when he's watching the door. All that stuff was great.
So I'm talking about the idea that car scene was all improvised.
Yeah. Oh wow.
That shook me up. Yeah,
I could see it because it felt like. Yeah. No, I was just going to say you could feel the characters kind of spreading out in that scene, so I could totally see that. I mean, it's a great scene, but I can also believe those actors were really feeling it when they were doing that scene.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Special kind of movie, man.
And Miles Caton,
the craziest voice I've ever heard.
Oh, well, what a great discovery. And then like the way it leads into something else that the movie reveals later is just a really cool little, I don't know. That was just really smart. But like I've heard people say Michael B. Jordan is the star, but Miles Caton is the heart of this movie, and I think that's undeniable. Like, and it kind of begins and ends with his character's story, and I think that's an important thing. The Smoke and Stack are these kind of legendary figures that come into the story. Yeah, it's really just also a cool historical thing. I mean, I know that's what everybody would say about this, is trying to pull all those details off right, but I've always loved juke joints and the concept of just how good the music must have been and how fun it must have been to be in that atmosphere. And like this just totally evokes that sense of fun. You mentioned this, Steve, when you were talking about this, that for all these other things, this heady themes and really deep ideas about cultural appropriation and assimilation and all that kind of stuff, that it is a fun movie. You know, it's not like homework. So I don't know. I don't know if I guess I will mention, is it Wunmi? I don't know how to say that name. Masaku as Annie. Yeah. She's always great. And she's another person who kind of walks away with portions of this movie. I loved what her character represents to the sort of lore aspect of the story.
Yeah.
There's the established religion, and then there's the kind of counterpoint, or there's the mainstream religion, and then there's the kind of maybe older religion that's a counterpoint to that the movie sort of says, like, wait, which version of, I don't know, what kind of connection do you want with the other world? Do you want it to be one that's been filtered through this other thing and handed down to you in this patriarchal way, or do you want it to be this freer form of magic or something? I don't know. I just thought the movie it got me to thinking thoughts about philosophical ideas about, you know, why people organize around religious ideas. And that whole idea that we all have is like, it gets to a point where you're like, well, this doesn't feel like connecting with the divine. This feels like rules or something handed down. I think it's interesting for any movie to get into that, as well as like vampires biting people's throats out. So yeah, there's also that big scene that I think didn't work for me visually as well as it seemed to for some, but I also think that having that scene that's shot in IMAX, you know, that's just so ballsy to put that to have a moment like that in the middle of this movie, a moment that becomes fully abstract. I just think that was, I don't know. How did you guys feel about that scene? Was that one of those standout scenes for you, or did you find aspects of it?
Yeah, I think that we were trying to dance around last week when I was like, that's like, I think I was calling it like, it was kind of like a reveal scene to me. Like that was like, I mean, that's like the scene. I mean, I don't know, there's great scenes in that movie, but like, I think the scene that will be remembered or talked about, like, is that scene.
Yeah.
And I think that when that scene happened, especially because again, there's that voiceover at the beginning talking about the connection to the past, and that voiceover comes back in right before that scene hits and says, and the future. And, you know, when it opens up and, you know, starts doing the whole for portion of it, the oneer, I that's one of those Steve sits up in his chair and, like, you know, is on his knees, his elbows on his knees moments. Like, you know, kind of get, honestly, like I had like goosebumps watching that scene personally. Like that was like a wow moment for sure.
I loved the original part with the music, and I loved like the roof burning and all that stuff. I wasn't as crazy about the sort of music history all in one thing, but I love the idea of like seeing people through the crowd that seem like maybe they're from another place in time. But when it was just full on abstract, I thought it was cool, but it's like, for me, it didn't work as well as the part of that shot that was really just showing off the performance, and you know what I mean, the way that he's delivering. But either way, what a cool idea to point out how music connects you to how it reaches back, you know. And then in this movie, the idea that some people have actually a talent that makes them able to, you know, connect to the ancestors in a very direct way. But just the idea that when you're listening to music, you're listening to so much that's been handed down and received, and the way the movie positions those different musical traditions, not so much against each other, but to contrast the way that, you know, at least the way the movie kind of represents them. It was, just really interesting.
What about you, Rana? What was your reaction to that scene?
Yeah,
I felt it before in my life a lot, actually. I refer to it as a through line. I can only describe it like that. I've been here and in the past and in the future at the same time. And that sounds weird because I don't really talk like that about stuff. But I've experienced spaces where I felt all that stuff. And music is normally like a thing. I've been in church settings where I felt it. I've been in like live band settings where I felt it. And it's almost, I've never seen it portrayed that way, but I felt it that way. I felt like I was in a room full of people. Meals do it for me. I know it sounds weird.
No, totally. Food's very much like art in that way.
Grits and eggs are like a connective tissue between my ancestors, my grandmother, and my future. And sometimes when I'm like at like Waffle House, I'm like, she would have enjoyed this with me. You know what I mean? It's like a weird warm
No, totally.
feeling that makes me all weepy. But yeah, I can understand how somebody could watch that and be a little like, it's a little corny. But
yeah, corny was the word I was kind of trying not to use because it's a weird word to use on such a good movie and on such a cool scene too, you know.
But it really does. It really is like a cool representation of what music can do, and I don't think there's any other way. Maybe he felt like he could have done it without, it's like, especially. I mean, you realize that everything has roots in blues. I mean, it just has that thing. Where you'll see like a guy in Korea singing like Sam Cooke, it's like, it's like that sort of thing where like, that there's a connective tissue between all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that maybe it had to have been done. Like, I feel like, okay, so here's my logic with that. Ryan had put so many Easter eggs and subtle things in the movie, subtle things, that I feel like maybe he should have made a hit you over the head scene like this in order to have one version of this thing that's like, ha, we can all know what this means. Yeah. With all the like, because there's so much layered stuff in it, you know what I mean? Like even just like the Asian family having a black and a white store, and people maybe not realizing that they're going from one of their stores to the other. Is a really cool thing, and the idea that like, okay, so I said something when I first saw the movie. Last thing, I'm sorry. Dolly Lee, who put out this documentary about the Mississippi Delta. So she's a journalist. If you look her up, Dolly Lee, Dollylli, who inspired the portion of the script with the Asian family. Ryan Coogler reached out to her because of this documentary. I'd seen it before, and that's what I was kind of saying about him doing the research and making this as accurate as it could. There's an authenticity to it that, there were Asian families that existed in Mississippi and functioned and, bless you, that functioned and had this, prosperity and were with the people, like, very much functioning with black folks in those settings. And there's like a real set of people that this lady found out that her family really existed down there, really had roots in Mississippi, and had these amazing Mississippi accents.
Right. Well, I like how they definitely had in the movie those characters had real strong accents.
You gotta love it, man.
Also Haley Steinfeld, but I haven't mentioned her. She's so good. She's always good, but like what this character represents, this whole idea of what world she's bought into, or maybe benefiting from, So I guess we've all said, you guys said go ahead. I'm saying go ahead. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. And then remember that you have this last little section because I want to talk to you guys about themes. And one big question I have that I think there's no way to talk about, even to hint at, without talking specifically about something. So folks, if you have not seen Sinners, I would even say, normally we say if you don't care, keep listening. I would say if you haven't seen Sinners, just get out of here.
Yeah. Spoilers ahead.
Spoilers ahead. You don't need, but I would encourage you to see it. So it's because it's that good.
Yeah.
So okay, spoilers are coming. 1, 2, 3. Here they are. No, there's a mid-credit scene that I had a question about, and I'll just sort of preface it with this: that like in the movie, there's so much going on that we could talk about, but like the idea of the vampiric force being this communal thing that takes you over and you become like part of a hive mind, which sounds like in some ways it's not horrible. And in other ways, it's co-opting you. It's like this is a culture through which that consumes you and processes you, and so you become part of it. And it's great to be part of it. Oh, we're all communing, but like you lose your individuality, and you also are never what you would have been before. And we find out too, there's the added thing of your soul is pushed down deep down inside your body, and it's trapped there, and you live as a vampire forever. The movie lines up like vampirism with like whiteness in that way. But it doesn't make it totally analogous because everybody can become a vampire. It's not like there's a racial aspect to who becomes a vampire and how they act. And and the fact that the main vampire, the sire of all these other vampires, is essentially an immigrant who would have been oppressed in different times and has his own cultural traditions and stuff. It's like it's like the movie does play that creepy song about the robin that they sing as a little bit of a joke, but it also points out that it's good. You know what I mean? I think the movie is leaning, like, we're seeing a lot of blues, but like the other musical tradition is like, it also lines up a little bit with the vampirism too, because we know what people have always said about what white people have done with the music that black people have made is co-opt it and get inspired by it. And maybe there's some fantastic music that gets made, but there's still something about like, well, have you watered it down? Have you lessened it? I mean, we all know that happens over time with anything cultural. So there's all this stuff that I'm talking about. You could talk about for a half hour, and I'm just breezing past it. But so at the end of the movie, in the mid-credits scene, when Stack and Mary show up, they don't seem unhappy to me. They seem free. And I don't know whether I'm supposed to because it's like, he still appreciates the music. He's still honoring the promise he made to his brother not to harm Sammy. It's like, it's like at that moment, I'm like, well, is vampirism, it doesn't line up totally with the idea of being co-opted by whiteness, because those two characters seem genuinely happy to me at the end. And I'll say this, I'm genuinely happy that they're still alive at the end. Like, I was glad that they got away. Like, I understand that we're supposed to have complicated feelings about them, but I just wondered what you thought of that scene, because I enjoyed that scene and didn't feel like they were these. I mean, it is hilarious that he shows up with a fade and a Cosby sweater, but I don't think that, I think that's just a little bit of visual humor about.
Was that the early 90s? Is that when
1992 is when that scene is set. But I don't know, what do you think of that scene, and what did you take from it? And are you getting any of what I'm seeing, Ronald, is that at the end of that, these characters don't seem like tragic, corrupted characters. In a way, they actually seem free to me. So I was wondering what you thought of that. Like, this is just complicated thoughts I had at the end of the movie.
I think it has some heavy symbolism for me. So I think it kind of represents what we're able to do with pain. Like I think that sometimes you see people functioning, happy people. It's like this assumption that black people are essentially like carefree in the middle of these like dancing and making music and things like that, when actually there's a layer to it. There's like there's a expression of pain in that, right? I think that what it's showing is he's walking around with a huge burden, which is like the loss of his brother, this huge weight loss, lost on him. And she is too. Like, she loved him too. Yeah. Just as much. But I think it's kind of this idea that, like, with all that loss, with all these like bruises on your soul, that people can still function in a way that still is beautiful and hopeful and almost transcendent. So that's what that represented to me. But there is like still a freedom in knowing that there's a happiness that existed. Like that day, man, when they talk about that day,
oh man, that killed me.
I damn near wanted to leave the theater. Like, I was like, because I'm like that's that one day that it was like everybody was happy, everybody was together. Yeah.
When he said though, until it got bad, it was the best day of my life. And this is Sammy, played by Buddy Guy, and great in that scene. Yeah. 60 years later, and he's there, an old man, looking at them, looking the same as they looked on that night, And I don't know. There's so much there. I mean, obviously, it's not one way we're supposed to feel, but when he said that, Ronald, good dialogue sneaks up on you. That line was like, holy shit, I didn't even know you could put those words together and make me feel that way. But when he says, until everything bad happened, that was the best day of my life, and then he's like, like, wasn't it? Is kind of his reaction. That is, I mean, I'm actually getting a little like, I can't even explain what. Maybe it's just the movie, but maybe it is the way it makes you think about your own life, and I don't know. There's so much going on in this movie, and then there's that whole piece of it that is kind of what you're talking about, which is a very specific experience that you can't necessarily touch if you haven't had it. But I think this movie helps you understand it. On a way. And I think maybe that's the magic of a movie like this, is that this is a movie for everybody, but obviously some people are going to have a much deeper resonance with it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that some of the stuff is like the blackness and deal with that racism and all those tragedies. But then there's also the other layer. Like somebody may see you out, think you're a nice person, and not know all the burdens that you deal with, all the losses that you've suffered, you know. And I hate to bring it up like this, but like losing a parent, man, maybe losing both of your parents, you know, that losing an aunt, losing an uncle, losing somebody that was raising you. People do not understand how hard it is to function after you lose someone of significance. That burden that you have to deal with. And that kind of is what that represented to me. Seeing those two people in that room, as you know that they look beautiful. It's like you see these beautiful people, but there's a lot of pain in there. There's a lot
Absolutely.
of suffering. There's a lot of like, think about all those people they lost. All those people that were converted, all those people that they danced with. You know, it's like they had all those memories with.
Yeah.
And that is like a wild part about aging beautifully. It's like all that pain, all that suffering is kind of here, and people don't see it. It's like some people wear it. Some, you know, you're like, fuck, this person had a terrible life. They're bruised up and have like sunken in eyes. You're like, oh my God, they've been through some shit. But then they'll see people like us who have all had some sort of suffering and don't have no fucking clue that, you know, behind these eyes are, you know, a little bit of pain, And I think that was the perfect way to show that through these people that were beautiful. They were fucking gorgeous. Walking into this club and having this interaction with this guy, chains and sweaters and all this stuff.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much stuff somebody's been through, man. It's a heavy idea. And I didn't think about that until I left the theater. I was like, oh my God, like all that stuff that we kind of push down. So this is like a layered
Which in this case
conversation.
is the soul too. I mean, we also have to think about what we know.
Man.
Those people have their original souls pushed down somewhere deep down inside.
Yeah.
Or maybe 60 years later, who knows? Maybe you've integrated yourself a little bit more. Like you,
Right,
you know,
right.
not to use a severance term, but maybe you've reintegrated your pushed down soul and your vampire soul. Because there does seem to be a reflection of the person that was once there and the memories and the attachments. But the way the movie visualizes the red eyes and just the dark, the shadowy figures standing on the doorstep wanting to be let in and asked in. And that's so, this movie, I mean, God, the way it worked with that whole "you got to invite us in" thing was fantastic, and it was such a great theme when it turns into them not inviting the hillbillies in because it's like, you guys seem like bad news, and even when Mary comes and this, I mean, honestly, Ronald, I have never thought of this before. This movie made the whole idea of, you could come in because you're cool, but the second something goes wrong, your whiteness is what's going to take over. Not our accepting of you, but the whiteness you bring with you, and the reason she's passing, but the reason that if she were to be honest about who she is, she wouldn't be accepted in the white circles that she moves in. So she is a little bit more compromised of like that whole question of who gets invited in. I've heard people joking about it's about who being invited to the cookout, which is an overused phrase. But I think the way the movie plays with that sense of like, this is a black space, and like who should be here is something we take seriously. I think of that as like, again,
it's like a real thing.
But it became a plot point in a genre film, and it worked as both a genre plot point and a kind of mystical thing, and as a commentary on this very real societal thing that we're talking about. So this movie just, the more I think about it and the more I talk about it, the more I realize like, a great movie is, there's a lot to chew on in a great movie. And this is one of those.
That like natural hesitation you have when somebody asks a question weird. It's like, why would you ask? You were just here.
I
like,
love that.
So why are you talking like that?
Why are you talking like that?
Why did you not need to be asked in before? You've been in and out of this door 10 times.
Again, Delroy.
Cornbread was great. Cornbread was great too.
Yes.
He was very funny. The big field hand guy.
The fucking garlic scene with Delroy lit. It's like his reaction to the garlic kind of seems like he's a vampire. He's like, suffering. Oh man, could be related to his alcoholism. Could be related to his. God, that scene was incredible, man. That
And
movie
also, it was just one of those funny edits. But like when he's trying to convince Slim, I think that was Delroy Lindo's character, right? Yeah, Delta Slim.
Yeah.
Trying to convince him, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do it. I've got this other gig." I love what he said about, "You'll give me that tonight, but that's not a night." You know what I mean? Like that, I thought that was really. I mean, because I was thinking that when he was saying it, like I would be weighing that too. But then when he shows him the wad of money and gives him the beer, and then it cuts to him playing the harmonica with the kid. I just thought that was fantastic. I mean, that was just a really funny little edit, but it's like it tells you everything you need to know about Slim, which is that like he does have a certain kind of backbone, but he's also that guy, that kind of low down guy who's been low and he's happy to stay low, you know.
when he told him where the alcohol was from, and he was like, "Where? Where's it from?
Irish beer?
Irish beer? Oh, okay."
No.
Yeah, it was so good, man.
So full of life. Maybe you said this last time, Steve, but this movie just is full of all kinds of stuff that is just the stuff of life.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I even loved him shooting the guy in the ass and the other guy in the knee. and then paying for their medical care. Like that shows you like it's a real weird Robin Hood kind of attitude that
he had
really
to do it. He had to do it because if the guy got away, he will have. Oh God, man, it's just incredible
They
stuff.
got a reputation to protect.
They got a reputation to protect, so he had to shoot him in his ass.
Even like coaching the girl that he got to watch the car to like ask for more. That
Negotiate,
was like that means something though. I mean, because that moment is great, but when that tells you what he represents and what he wants to be to the community, that's not lost on me. That he's saying that to a young black girl in this time and place, saying ask for more. You know, I don't know. It's full of things like that are so worth digging into.
Oh man, like sharp dialogue, man. It just.
And I want to say thank you, Ryan Coogler, or maybe this is Michael B. Jordan's choice, but this is probably Ruth Carter that we should thank.
Yeah.
The costumer. But thank you for giving them different hats.
and a color theme overall.
Yeah, like a little
got
blue
the blue
versus a little
theming
red.
and the dark red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, the trunk.
The trunk.
I think you gotta pop the trunk.
The trunk, the mojo. Also, this movie was refreshing for a modern movie that's like this. This was refreshingly horny. This movie had like a lot of
horny,
like sex in it. But also, don't you think young men need to hear this movie's message about cunnilingus?
Yeah, for sure.
That's what's all over Twitter. It's like how sex positive, but also just how much cunnilingus is in this film.
Yeah,
I mean, but setting it up as like telling him like, here's what you do, and the way he describes, I don't know, not to get too into it, but I was like, that's a pretty good description.
You're like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, that was cool as shit. And he's
the whole
like,
ice cream comparison. I was like, yeah, that works.
Then he like immediately gets to try the advice just hours later. It's just fucking crazy.
But her being like, I want to wash up, and him being like, you don't got to worry about that. Like that's like real earthy, very sexually frank dialogue. You just don't normally get. It just made this movie feel adult in a way that I really appreciated, because I feel like movies nowadays try to leave sex out for some reason.
Pheromones, like just hormones in the air, and like you start to feel like a werewolf almost. Like it's like it's I thought that was portrayed in such a cool way, and advice just being immediately applicable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you didn't even know you were getting that, you know. But it's like the cigarette rolling, where it's like we've got that scene later where Smoke is trying to roll a cigarette by himself and he can't do it. You know, his hands are shaking. And his brother used to do that for him. I don't know, that moment pays off, but so does the advice about, you know, oral sex, because then later he comes up to the door and he's ready to tell whoever's in there, get the hell out of there. But then he hears, she says, "Oh, preacher boy," and he knows who's in there. And he's like, okay. And he walks away. I just thought that was, again, that kind of warmth and character stuff. It just felt their desire to like look in on him too. That's part of it. But they also ask him, like, your dad's not being mean to you, is he? You know?
Yeah.
That was very meaningful to me as well. Like, again, there's a moral side to this story that we're to understand that Smoke and Stack are rough guys, but it's not like they don't have a code.
Yeah.
You know?
I really enjoyed how rough they were, but how soft they were around their significant others. Like, you know, just seeing them, that scene in the house where he's just like, "You want me to tell you how much I miss you and how much I love you," and that shit was,
Also, Also,
And then the baby.
Annie's sexual agency and like the way she's running that. I mean, again, the women in this have a lot of depth to them, and I think that's something not that you don't always see, but you don't always see this much going on in a movie that also has great women characters in it.
Yeah, all beautiful shades and sizes. Man, you gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. I felt like a really special group of women, and I want to see it again.
Yeah, I do too.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's an episode.
We did it.
Schmovie.com is the website. You can go there to subscribe to the podcast and the platform of your choice, or listen right there if you want, just to listen through the browser. We also have youtube.com/movie podcast if you want to go for the visual and or audio option there. Also, lots of options on YouTube. We also have the shorts on there, like the episodes get kind of cut up in little snippets, and you can take a little bites of it, see how it tastes before you go for the whole episode if you like. But if you could do either of those, any of those, we would really appreciate it. Engage in any way. Let us know how the podcast went. Your experience listening to it would be really great to hear from you. And also share it if you don't mind. Like, send a link to somebody that you think would also like to listen to us talk about movies and television and just kind of media overall. We would love it if you could help us spread the word a little bit. It would be appreciated. We'll be back next week with a new episode. And as a reminder, John's pick for required viewing, The Hunt for Red October. It's on Canopy for free, Pluto for free, Hoopla for free. Or you could buy the 4K option for $15 in Apple, like we said. If you're Ronald, you're going to buy that $15 4K option. Thumbs up from Ronald. There you go. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, you made our day. Thanks.
Bye.